I stood in the center of the living room I paid for, watching my husband's face turn a violent shade of purple as he screamed that I was a leech who contributed nothing, while I quietly tapped Cancel All on my banking app for the mortgage, the utilities, and his mother's private health care. "You've never given this family anything but a headache, Tessa," Julian roared. He stepped into my space, his breath smelling like the expensive scotch I bought him for our anniversary. "We're done. Pack your bags. This house needs a woman who actually cares, not a robot who's never home." Behind him, my in-laws, Arthur and Myra, didn't even try to hide their smirks. Myra sat on my velvet sofa, sipping tea from my grandmother's china, probably already picturing the mistress moving into my master bedroom. They thought they had me cornered. They thought because I worked double shifts as a senior aviation logistics manager, I was too tired to notice the for sale appraisal papers hidden in the kitchen junk drawer. I handle millions of dollars of cargo across the world. I move planes like chess pieces. I deal with fuel strikes and engine failures every hour. I am a professional at managing disasters. And I had just realized that my marriage was a hijacked flight headed for a crash. The moral debate in my head was simple. Do I tell them now that I know about Julian's secret girlfriend, or do I let them finish their plan to sell my house so the police can catch them for fraud? If I speak now, they just leave. If I wait, they go to jail. "You're throwing me out of my own home?" I whispered. "It's our home, Tessa," Julian said, his smile turning sharp and ugly. "And since you never give anything, we're taking what's owed. Pack your bags by Monday. The realtor is coming tomorrow." I looked at the hallway table. I realized then that they were all in on it. They wanted my life, but they didn't want me. I didn't go to a hotel. I went to the hub. I sat in my swivel chair and watched the radar screens. Each little green dot was a plane. I knew where all of them were going. But Julian didn't know where I was going. I pulled up the executive buddy passes logs. I saw every flight he booked for a woman named Saffron. Hawaii, Aspen, Paris. He was flying the world on my hard work, while I was eating vending machine dinners in this control room. I spent hours printing the evidence. Every page that slid out of the printer felt like a nail in the coffin of my marriage. But then I found something that made my blood turn to ice. I accessed our home security cloud, the one Julian thought was broken. I saw her. Saffron wasn't just meeting him at hotels. She had been in my house. I watched footage from 3 weeks ago. While I was at the airport managing a fuel crisis, she was in my kitchen. She was wearing my silk robe. She was drinking from my favorite mug. In the video, Julian was laughing as he told her, "Don't worry, the workhorse won't be home for another 10 hours. The workhorse. That's what he called me. The woman who paid for his car, his clothes, and his parents' heart medication. I felt a cold, sharp clarity settle over me. I wasn't just a dispatcher anymore. I was an auditor. I opened his consulting business bank records. Julian had no real clients. His business was just a pipe system he used to drain my salary. I found a wire transfer for $12,000 labeled office rent. I looked up the address. It wasn't an office. It was the down payment on a convertible for Saffron. I began the digital grounding. First, I contacted the corporate travel office. I reported my buddy passes as stolen. This didn't just cancel future flights, it triggered a fraud alert for any past flights booked under those names. If Julian tried to use his membership at the airport lounge ever again, he'd be met by security, not a cocktail. Next, I looked at his business credit card. It was a sub-account of my main line. I didn't just close it. I lowered the limit to exactly $1. I wanted him to feel the embarrassment of a declined message for something as small as a cup of coffee. I wanted him to feel the walls closing in, 1 cent at a time. I sat there, watching the sunrise hit the tarmac. I thought about the moral trap I was setting. Is it wrong to wait? If I call him now, I save him from the public shame at the country club. I save his parents from the shock. But they didn't save me. They watched me work myself to the bone while they laughed at my robotic nature. They had 1,000 chances to be honest. They chose to be thieves. If I let the plane crash, is it my fault or the fault of the person who cut the engines? I realized then that Julian didn't just want my money. He wanted to erase me. He wanted to take the house my grandfather built, sell it, and use the ghost of my hard work to start a life with a woman who didn't even know his last name was on my lease. I called the home automation company. Yes, this is Tessa Reed. I'd like to put the house into vacation lockdown mode, effective immediately. Cut the smart meter power to the guest wing and the pool, and please disable the garage door codes. I was clearing the runway. By the time I was done, Julian wouldn't have a place to land. Saturday, 9 a.m. My phone rang. It was Julian. Tessa, the power is flickering, and the gardener is here shouting about a bounced check. What is going on with the accounts? Julian, I'm at work, I said, leaning back. I told you, I'm just a dispatcher. Maybe the bank made a mistake. Or maybe, since you're the man of the house now, you should call them yourself. I hung up. I could feel the shift in the air. The storm was coming. And for once, I was the one who predicted the weather. I wasn't there in person, but my friend Sarah was. She was sending me live updates. Arthur and Myra had invited the top tier of the neighborhood to celebrate their new investment project. They had ordered the vintage champagne, they had the lobster towers, they were acting like they owned the world. Tessa, you should see them, Sarah texted. Myra is telling everyone they're moving to Europe. She's acting like a queen. She even told the waiter that you were emotionally unstable, and that's why Julian was taking over the finances. Everyone is nodding and pitying Julian for having such a difficult wife. Then the moment happened. The waiter brought the bill. It was over $900. Arthur handed over his black card, the one I had deactivated at 4 a.m. The card was declined. The waiter tried it again. Declined. Arthur started shouting. He told the waiter the machine was broken. He told the manager to look up who he was. The manager did, and then the manager told him that the membership had been canceled for non-payment and violation of corporate terms. Julian tried his card. Declined. Myra tried hers. Declined. Sarah sent me a photo of them. Arthur was red-faced. Myra was trying to hide her face behind a menu. They had to ask their guests, the people they were just bragging to pay for the meal. Their friends looked at them with pure disgust. They had to leave Arthur's gold watch as a deposit just to be allowed to walk out of the building. I spent the next hour calling the local boutiques. I knew Myra had a store credit account in 3 of them, backed by my credit card. I closed them all. I called the pharmacy and moved Myra's premium delivery status to the most basic slow mail version. If she wanted her vitamins, she could walk to the post office like everyone else. Sunday morning, I arrived at the house at 10 a.m. I saw the realtor's car in the driveway. I saw Julian and his father standing on the porch. The power was completely out now. No AC, no lights, just the heat of a summer morning and the smell of their growing panic. They looked like they had slept in a tomb, their expensive clothes wrinkled and damp with sweat. "Right this way, Mr. Henderson," Julian said as the realtor walked up. He was trying to act like nothing was wrong despite the sweat dripping down his neck. He looked at the realtor with a fake, toothy grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Actually, I said, stepping out of my car. I was wearing my navy blue manager's uniform. I looked like authority. I looked like the person who decides if a plane stays on the ground or takes off into the sky. Mr. Henderson, I wouldn't go inside if I were you. Tessa, what are you doing here? Go back to your planes, Julian hissed. I'm here to save Mr. Henderson from a massive legal headache. I handed the realtor a folder. That house is owned by a private trust. My husband's name is not on the deed. He is trying to sell property that belongs to my family legacy. He even tried to bribe a notary, a man named Ted who is currently being questioned, to forge my signature on the sales agreement. The realtor looked at the papers. He looked at the trust seal. He looked at Julian. Is this true? You told me you had full power. You said your wife was not in her right mind and had been committed to a facility. The realtor didn't wait for an answer. He just took his briefcase and left. He didn't even look back at Julian. He knew a crime when he saw one. Julian stood there, his mouth hanging open, looking at the dust cloud from the realtor's car. The $3 million he thought he had just vanished into the morning air. The realtor was gone. Julian was standing in the dark hallway, his chest heaving. He looked at me with a look of pure hatred. I didn't feel afraid. I felt nothing. I had spent 10 years loving a ghost, and now the ghost was finally leaving. You ruined it, he screamed. He lunged at me, his hands shaking, but I didn't move. Behind me, 2 private security guards, men I had worked with at the airport for 5 years, stepped into the light. Julian stopped dead. He looked at their uniforms, then at me, realizing he had no power here. No one was coming to help him. I didn't ruin anything, Julian, I said. I just stopped paying for the lie. The audit is over, and you are bankrupt. I have the files of every flight you took with Saffron. I have the receipts for the jewelry you bought her with my money. I have the records of the money you moved into your consulting account. In the eyes of the law, that's called embezzlement. Myra came running out of the guest wing. She looked terrible. Her expensive silk robe was stained with tea. Tessa, please, we have nowhere to go. Arthur's credit is ruined. You can't just throw us out like garbage. We are family. You should have eaten the salad, I said. And as for family, family doesn't try to steal the roof over my head. Family doesn't tell people I'm mentally ill so they can sell my heritage. You've been using me for a decade. Today, the service ends. You aren't family. You're just cargo that stayed on the plane too long. I looked at the clock. It is now 12 p.m. The house is being locked down. The locks have already been changed on the guest house and the main gate. You have 15 minutes to take what you can carry in 2 bags each. Anything left behind stays with the trust for the estate sale. You can't do this, Arthur yelled, leaning against the wall. I'm a sick man. I need my bed. Then you should have treated the woman who paid for that bed with more respect, I replied. I've already contacted your doctor. Your records have been transferred to a state-funded clinic. They have a very nice waiting room. I watched them scramble. It was the most honest I had seen them in years. They weren't high society anymore. They shoved clothes into garbage bags. They fought over who got to keep the silver tea set until one of my security guards took it away. They walked out to the driveway. Arthur went to open the door of his luxury SUV. The keys don't work, he shouted, banging on the glass. That's because the car was a work lease. I reported it as unauthorized use this morning. The repo team has already disabled the ignition via the GPS link. Look down the street, Arthur. Here comes the tow truck. They had to stand at the end of the driveway, sitting on their suitcases, waiting for a taxi. Every neighbor who drove by slowed down to look. They saw the great Arthur and Myra Reed sitting in the dirt like refugees. The Smith family drove by and laughed. The Van Dorns didn't even look. Their social circle had closed its doors. Julian tried to look me in the eye one last time. He opened his mouth to say something, maybe an apology, maybe a curse, but he couldn't. He looked at the ground. He looked like the small, hollow man he had always been. I had just been the one providing the pedestal. Now that the pedestal was gone, he was just nothing. The taxi finally pulled up. It was a beat-up car that smelled like old smoke. They piled in, their garbage bags of clothes spilling out of the trunk. I watched them drive away until the taillights disappeared into the Saturday traffic. I went back inside. I walked to my office and picked up the tiny glass bottle with the white feather. I walked to the trash can and let it go. It didn't make a sound. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. It was Saffron. Julian told me the house was sold. He said he was a millionaire. I just saw the news about the fraud investigation. Don't worry, I'm gone. I don't date losers who get outplayed by their own wives. Good luck with the divorce. I blocked the number. I sat in my favorite chair. The house was quiet. No more screaming, no more lies, no more parasites eating my life from the inside out. I looked out the window and saw a heavy cargo plane climbing slowly into the clouds. It was heavy, but it was flying. It was on time. It was on course. And for the first time in my life, so was I.